Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge & Company. My guest, Tanya Domi, is Chief of Media Relations for CUNY's Graduate Center and the host of the Thought Project, a CUNY TV podcast where she talks with graduate students and faculty about thinking big with big ideas. It's very appropriate because she thinks big with big ideas, and she's done it for many years. She's my guest today. Welcome.
Thank you, Ronnie, for having me.
You do think big, and you've had big ideas from your early days when you were in high school.
Yes, I was not a typical kid at the time, and I had a big horizon. I never knew how I was going to get there, but as a child, I wrote presidents, and I wanted to go to Washington. That was my goal from a very young age.
You were from Indiana.
From Indiana, Indianapolis.
I worked with Robert Kennedy when he ran for president. I remember that Indiana campaign. I remember the leader, the Democratic leader. I forget what his name was. Anyway, but you went on. You went. Did you go to college first? Yes.
I did, but I didn't finish right away. I joined the Army when I was 19 years old.
That is a big thought.
Yeah, that was a big move. I had, so my parents were going through a divorce, one of those situations. And so I had to figure out how to take care of myself. I joined to get the GI Bill, and it ended up being a 15-year career. But I got out after I was initially enlisted, went back to school, and finished my degree and got my officer's commission in 1982.
You know, being in the Army is a very interesting thing because during the Vietnam War, I was working for the mayor, and I really designed a new Veterans Affairs place, and I had a volunteer from the faculty at West Point, and they invited me up for dinner one night. I was just so shocked by everybody. One was getting his doctorate in literature, other was going to this, that. So I came home and I said to my son, you know what, I think you should go into West Point. You know what he said, but anyway. But people get a very good education in the Army, don't they?
They can, and especially when you're an officer, if you're on a certain trajectory, you're offered to go to graduate school. And I was offered to go to West Point and teach in the history department. But because of my career and the fight on gays in the military, I did decline my appointment, and I resigned my commission in 1990.
You were in the Army before we had Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
That is
you were a victim of it, right?
Yes. The policy from 1941 to 1993 was homosexuality is incompatible with military service, full stop. And if you were determined to be gay, at that time up through the end of the Second World War, you would get a blue discharge, which made a person with a blue discharge a complete pariah. And many of those people never were able to be employed effectively. It destroyed people's lives. And this continued actually through the time I left. And so when I got out, I joined forces. This was post-Iraq, and many people came together to take on this fight, and Bill Clinton had promised to do this when he ran for president in 1992.
You were already an activist because you were in politics when you were a kid, but did it make you more of a human rights? Was the basis of being a human rights
Yeah,
person?
I think that transformed how I felt about injustice, that it was really wrong what was going on. And we estimate that between 1941 and 1993, over 100,000 people were discharged by the U.S. government, unnecessary money spent on investigating people's and their private lives. So yes, I really do think that really shaped not only my activism, but it also shaped my attitude about it. Yeah. And then after I went to Bosnia for the State Department, having worked with people who suffered genocide, that was a complete transformation.
Let's just go back to explain how you got there. You went into politics in Hawaii.
That's right.
And then you landed up staffing a person, not staffing, staffing the committee of a congressman in Washington.
That's right. I worked for Frank McCloskey,
Yeah.
who was on the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee, and I was his defense policy analyst.
He was great, wasn't he?
He was a great man, taken too soon.
Yeah. From that, then you went out.
After I left him for a while, that's when I engaged in the activism. And we, you know, of course, lost on that battle in September 1993 when the president signed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I stayed on to introduce the economic bill that was the first bill ever that the Leadership Conference for Civil Rights endorsed, with Ted Kennedy and Coretta Scott King on employment non-discrimination. And after we introduced that bill in June of '94, I signed up with the National Democratic Institute and went abroad to Nepal to work on their elections.
Right, into different countries. But then from that, you went
I went to
Europe.
Bosnia. I went to Bosnia because I had worked on the war, and the Dayton Peace Accords were signed in November 1995, and I signed up. In the meantime, waiting to hear from them, I went and worked at the National Democratic Committee, and I worked on the Clinton re-elect.
Yeah. So the experience in Bosnia was really life-changing. They say life-changing.
It was life-changing, without a doubt.
Explain it. I mean, you're a Balkanist, is that what they call you?
I am a Balkanist. I teach on the Balkans at Columbia University, Harriman Institute, and the School of International Public Affairs. Well, once I went, when I arrived in August of '96, the entire airport was still dysfunctional. It was completely shot up. No windows were in the terminal. It was completely sandbagged. It was part of the front line outside of Sarajevo. And so when you're leaving the airport to go into the city, the surrounding area is reminiscent at that point of Stalingrad, World War II. And I will never, ever forget it. It was completely destroyed. But what I was so moved by, as I got to know the people, and I was working in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, a multilateral organization, on the implementation of the Dayton Peace Accords.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you know about that organization before you started to get involved?
Yes. Yes.
From Washington?
Yeah, I mean, it has been around since 1973.
Right.
It was started by the Helsinki Act, which was ironically signed in Belgrade. So that, you know, and it was what people believe in Europe was the forward edge of breaking the wall down.
And when the United
Helsinki
States
Act.
joined it, it was a lot. There were a lot of Republican presidents that signed all these different agreements. So it was supported by everybody.
It was bipartisan, without
it was for
question.
European cooperation and economic. Yeah,
That's right. Without a doubt, it was bipartisan. And I ended up advising two U.S. ambassadors, Ambassador Robert Froelich, and then later Robert Berry, on the implementation. So I have to say that I was a note taker with many war criminals, including Milosevic. I traveled to Moscow on behalf of the ambassador. I traveled to Warsaw. I went to London. I worked with Richard Holbrooke and his team. It was an incredible, once-in-a-lifetime experience.
it is. It's thrilling to hear about it. It really is. What was the condition? Yugoslavia was already
Destroyed.
right. All right.
It had already broken up.
Right.
So this was like trying to put the pieces back together, because Bosnia sustained 110,000 dead, more than 2 million refugees, over 1,000 mosques were destroyed, the National Library was destroyed. So we're talking about genocide on a human level. We're also talking about cultural genocide of heritage.
The media stuff was just came naturally and part of
It
it?
was just part of what I always did. I was in high school, I was a cub reporter. I actually reported for the Indianapolis News teen section. I interviewed Richard Lugar as a, as a cub reporter as a junior in high school. I went on to get my journalism degree at Central Michigan University. I had a column at the university. When I was in the Army, I was a public affairs officer. So I've always been around media, working on message development on both sides of the notebook. I did work.
Right. And that was essential, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think communications is central
Right.
to diplomatic communications, political communications, positioning. All these things are like, they sort of just it came natural to me to get into that work.
Why did you come back?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think that I realized, having worked in Bosnia, that I needed to go back to graduate school, that I hadn't finished my graduate degree. And I looked around and said, where do I want to go? And I wanted to get back to the United States because I had been out of the country for a while, and I wanted to get rooted. I wanted to be someplace permanent. And I looked at Columbia University because it really had the best program in the United States on Eastern Europe, Eurasia, and developed the pedagogy to teach human rights. And so I applied, I was accepted, and when I left and I was at my last press conference, I bawled, I cried, and to this day, I have many friends. I have a godson in Sarajevo. I'll be going there in July for the 25th commemoration of the Srebrenica genocide. These people are very near and dear to my heart. But I knew I had to come back and gain more knowledge and more expertise. And that's why I came back, and I fell in love with New York. Up until that time, I had a love-hate relationship with New York as a Washingtonian. And when I came to New York the first time, I was absolutely exhausted, so I didn't enjoy the city at that point. But when I came and went to Columbia, I just fell in love, and I am a New Yorker by sheer destination, as E.B. White once wrote.
And now you teach there.
I teach at Columbia. I've taught there for almost 12 years, and I teach at Hunter.
What do you teach at Hunter?
I teach human rights.
Good. That's very...
I teach LGBTQ human rights. It's a new course. I was thrilled to teach. It was this past fall. I love the students. It was really exhilarating to teach that class.
And you've been invited to all kinds of organizations to speak or to join in fellowships and stuff like that. So you're a communicator and you understand. What do you think is happening in the country today?
What's happening?
We have another communicator.
Yeah, yes, we do. Well, the one thing that you can say about Trump is he's always been a good marketing whiz. But what we're seeing is what we saw in the Balkans 25 years ago, is the rise of despots, of authoritarian regimes. Now in political science parlance, you call that illiberal regimes. And it's a global phenomenon. And I think it's really no accident that it happened here as well, because we've had a breakdown in communities across this country for a while. And I think one of the first indicators was the Harvard professor who wrote Bowling Alone back in like '81. And then What's Wrong in Kansas followed, a book by a political scientist.
What was tell me the first book?
Bowling Alone. It wasn't a book, it was an article. And he said that Americans now had this tradition of being in citizens associations and being involved in their communities, but people now, because of two-paycheck marriages, etc., people are going out and they're bowling alone. They're literally alone with themselves. And I think that when I look back on the, the quote unquote, the literature, as we say in the academy, I think that was one of the first early signs that we were having some problems in this country. And that was like 81. That was right after Reagan was elected.
Right. So that was fostered with Reagan.
I think so. I think that's part of it. I also think that, the whole idea of American, the way probably you and I grew up, was this can-do idea that we can go out, we can fix any problem, we innovate.
We were going to change the world.
We were going to change the world. We put the first man on the moon. I mean, the whole innovation of JFK, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. And that spirit animated my childhood, even though it didn't necessarily support my goals as a little girl at the time. Nonetheless, that spirit does not exist today. And when you think about Chris Christie, a few years ago, saying, no, we're not going to take the money from Washington because we can't afford to build a tunnel from New York to New York, is so antithetical to being American. And I was like, what is with these people? They're elected to lead governments and provide services, but they say we can't. And that just isn't who I thought we were. So this now animates our politics, and it's quite populist.
I was born on Franklin Roosevelt's birthday in the Depression. And I grew up with Franklin Roosevelt. That was my politics. And so the tradition of that is what's in my head.
Sure.
And it's a combination of and you get appalled what we see today, right?
Well, it's not only appalling. What I say to everyone is that I'm not surprised, but I am continually shocked because it's just one new derogation, one new norm over and over is being broken and broken. And now the most recent is that the President of the United States is attacking Sotomayor, Judges Sotomayor and Ginsburg. It is an outrage.
Right, totally. All the separation of power is disappearing. He doesn't cooperate with the Congress, so they just are happy to move. The Senate seems to be happy to move on without, when were these people born and where were they born and what were their families like? You realize how important civic education is, but also the history and your world around you, right there.
Well, I think you make a really good point on civic education, because I think what we're living with today is a lot of people who are not educated on how their government works, from city council all the way up to the federal government. And I also think that people just aren't engaged. They're checked out. They have grievances. They have issues that they blame others. For example, those of us who live on the East Coast who are well educated, or people who live on the West Coast that are really educated. When you look at the coastal areas, this is where most of the wealth is in the country and the most educated people. And that compact of going to college has now become burdened with big debt. And in a city like New York, we still are providing education that's fairly affordable, where, this used to be the poor man's Harvard, but truly you can really get a good master's degree at CUNY that's highly affordable. But that isn't the case throughout most of the country.
So are we in danger with a new generation, although because they didn't know what it was like in a different time? I was born during the Depression, and I don't remember the accumulation of wealth and the worshiping of wealth. If you're rich, you must be smart.
Right.
That's how Donald Trump won, I think. And it's just shocking to me.
I think it is shocking, but I also think it's the pursuit of wealth for the sake of wealth and power. And people today in the new startups, in the IT industry, like Facebook and Twitter, it's really incumbent upon them to really step up and start supporting the country. And, you know, Bloomberg has been a fairly good philanthropist, but nonetheless, now our politics is being infiltrated by billionaires. And so I think the compact that you would graduate from college, you would get a good job, you would move out of your parents' home and live on your own has just not been possible for the latest generation. And I think that is what is driving a lot of the grievances. But I also think that our institutions have failed people. I think our institutions have failed people. When Chris Christie said, well, we can't build the tunnel, that's failure. I mean, the city, as you know, 1 million people come into the city every day and leave every night, and mass transit is absolutely vital to the city.
And Trump has just canceled the New York protection of its
seawall, yes, down in the South Manhattan. Right. So I despair over this "we can't do it" attitude. And, you know, I believe, I'm a person who believes that the glass is half full. And I am definitely idealistic, and I'm not sure that I deserve to be, but this seems to be my personality.
And you lived through the gay rights movement, but through the Vietnam War, where we were convinced that we were going to make the difference.
This is true.
And we did in this company of all these people. And we had it with the Women's March.
I have to say, well, the anti-war movement, second wave feminism, the gay rights movement, the racial equality, civil rights. I mean, we lived through all of that, and some terrible events happened. Lots, you know, the assassination of Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers, and, you know, some great leaders in this country. We have sustained many terrible events. However, this country has always been able to pull itself together, get up and go do a new thing. And I'm shocked by the negativity of our leaders. Even Reagan, for whatever you want to say about him, was a positive leader. I mean, he oozed, you know, this positive idea of the city on the hill. We can discuss that, you know, as a policy failure perhaps, but nonetheless, we had presidents that said we can go do these things. And right now, all we are getting is one negative attack after another out of the White House. And I think it really is straining people. People are having a difficult time sleeping. People are worried. This coronavirus, I think, could be a potential political threat to Trump if he does not effectively deal with it.
That's very interesting. Do you think the press has fallen down?
I think the first two and a half years of his presidency, I had a critique of somebody who's really knowledgeable of the Eastern European press. These people are not ready for prime time. To think that you should sit there and not challenge the White House because they're no longer briefing, I mean, that's just completely unacceptable. And I think the press has been really passive because in Washington, as you know, it's access journalism. It's about who's got access. That is the currency of Washington inside the Beltway journalism. New York, it's a whole different other animal.
Yeah. So you think you could help change it?
Well, I'm actually holding a conference at Columbia in April on fake news, attacks on journalism and disinformation. And we were going to start with an American panel, but the rest of the day is by Balkan journalists. And really, they've seen it all. They've seen everything from genocide to attacks on journalists, people killed. There were 65 journalists killed in Bosnia during the war. So, I mean, I think they have a lot to teach us.
And who comes to the conference like that?
Well, Kati Martin is going to open it up.
I mean, who are the people who come to listen?
The people come to listen. Anybody can come, and it's open to the public.
Oh, good. That would be
It's open to the public.
Right.
Kati Martin, the wife of Richard Holbrooke, is going to open it up. She's written a book on Hungary, And you know, it's going to be a really interesting conference.
So are you going to talk about it on CUNY TV, on your podcast?
Probably not, because I'm talking to faculty and students. Maybe CUNY TV can invite me to talk
Maybe
about
you
it.
come to me or call me up so we can
Sure.
talk about it.
Absolutely.
I think, thank you. I mean, I just am in such awe of your life. and I never left New York City, really, basically. I never lived outside of Manhattan. Actually, I was born on the West Side.
Well, the
vision,
world comes...
so, you know, it's just amazing.
Well, the world comes to New York.
Yeah,
so this
that's
is a
true.
wonderful place to live.
Yeah, it is. We've come to the end of our program.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Tanya, it's been lovely, and I'm so glad to talk to you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.